Recognizing the State of Palestine is dangerous, not for Israel or the US, but for Palestinians and the truth.
Two-state solution is near a point of no return.
It might sound counterintuitive at first, even maybe provocative. But recognition is a lot more sinister than it looks.
Solution politique, on doit aller vers une reconnaissance. Et donc dans les prochains mois, on ira.
Behind the words is a carefully crafted performance, a distraction.
Well, as Israel continues to besiege the Gaza Strip, it's also putting pressure on the occupied West Bank, ramping up both raids and illegal settlements.
As the land is being taken and the people are erased. I know, because I grew up there. I heard the promises, I watched the celebrations, I saw the flags being raised. But soon after, the walls went up, the checkpoints multiplied, and the land began to shrink. The idea of two states for two people is an illusion to gaslight the world into believing in peace, while concealing a much darker truth: colonialism.
Green line. Do you know where the green line is?
And exist.
It doesn't exist.
All of Israel is our land.
All of Israel is yours.
Yeah. God gave us Israel. All of it.
But let's ask, what state are they recognizing? A sovereign Palestinian state? Where is it? Gaza is being genocided. The West Bank is under military occupation. And Jerusalem is being emptied of its people. In this video, I want to show you the truth. It all comes back to Western powers, dividing and conquering what is not theirs. In almost every colonial case in history, empires have employed one of their favorite tools to dominate and control indigenous people: partition. As the British took over the Mandate of Palestine following World War I and the fall of the Ottoman Empire, they made a promise that had severe consequences. With a stroke of a pen, Lord James Arthur Balfour declared in 1917 that Palestine was to be the homeland of the Jewish people. The letter was addressed to Lord Lionel Walter Rothschild. Legally, Palestine wasn't Lord Balfour's to give, and it was definitely not Lord Rothschild's to receive. But the colonial mind saw the indigenous Palestinians as an afterthought, a pawn in the game of big empires.
To which millions of Jews all over the world are turning as their dream of home.
Few decades, Jewish immigration has been adding steadily to the European element in the country.
The main case of the Arabs is against the British government's policy in Palestine. A policy which, if continued, will surely have as a result the replacement of the Arabs by the Jews.
The promise traveled for 30 years and landed in the halls of the newly established United Nations. Against the backdrop of the European Holocaust, 33 countries voted for Resolution 181 to partition Palestine into an Arab and Jewish state.
The Jewish state will include the ports of Haifa and Tel Aviv and the whole of the Negev Valley. The Arab will occupy the fertile eastern part. Jerusalem will come under United Nations trusteeship.
The resolution gave most of the land to a settler population that had just recently arrived from Europe, forcing the indigenous majority into fragmented, disconnected zones. The UN, led by Western powers, had no right to carve up Palestine, but they did anyway. While interestingly, those from the global south and recently independent countries voted against. And this is where the problem lies. Recognizing the state of Palestine on part of the land is accepting the reality imposed on us by colonialism. That, to me, is not the true meaning of liberation and self-determination. And in that sense, Palestine is not unique. Colonial powers partitioned India, Ireland, and Vietnam. And in settler colonial states like the US and South Africa, partition looked like the reservations, bantustans, and ghettos. Partition is not a peace offering. It's a scar left by colonialism, and it bleeds for generations. And in every case, the indigenous people resisted the carving up of their land. And like them, so do Palestinians. In Vietnam, Algeria, and South Africa, liberation didn't mean a part of it. It meant all of it. And many years later, we learned that even partition was a lie. In 1988, the Palestine Liberation Organization led by Yasser Arafat accepted the partition of Palestine and the idea of a state on 22% of historic Palestine.
PLO chairman Yasser Arafat had triumphantly read the Declaration of Independence.
قيام دولة فلسطين فوق أرضنا الفلسطينية
This decision was taken by a leader that was exiled to Tunisia, far away from his people and their struggle, as they were rising up against Israel in the First Intifada. Yasser Arafat, who was the symbol of the Palestinian struggle, was afraid that he would be shunned to the sidelines of history.
Two states solution. We know that when we had accepted 181.
And so he made the decision out of self-preservation. This led to the calamitous Oslo Accords. But here's what you need to understand. Oslo was not a roadmap to peace. It was a blueprint for managing the occupation of Palestine. So what were the terms of the deal? The PLO would get to administer 18% of 22% of historic Palestine. In return, they would have to recognize Israel, provide its security, and subsidize the occupation. The words State of Palestine were not even mentioned in the agreement, and substantive issues like Jerusalem, the refugees and borders were left to be negotiated at a future date. While the world applauded peace and the two-state solution, Israel built. Settlements exploded. The settler population doubled, then tripled. Checkpoints multiplied. And Area C, which made up 60% of the West Bank, was slowly carved up. Today, when we look at a map, at what is supposed to be the Palestinian state, we see an archipelago of Palestinian towns and cities that are drowning in a sea of Israeli control and settler violence.
If the Israeli occupation authorities continue to entrench the reality of one apartheid state, as is happening today, our Palestinian people and the entire world will not tolerate such a situation.
And this is what is mind-blowing. The Palestinian leadership of today is still holding on to the idea of partition, because to them, the idea of being the captain of the ship is much more important than the fact that the ship is sinking and the passengers on board are dying. And this is one of the greatest lies the Israelis ever pulled. They used the Oslo Accords and the promise of future negotiations to slowly colonize the rest of Palestine. And instead of holding them accountable, the same international powers that partitioned Palestine hid behind the mantra of peace and the two-state solution while Israel blew it to oblivion. See, people tend to forget we already live in a one-state reality in which Israel controls every human between the river and the sea in a state of apartheid. And now, decades later, Western leaders are coming forward ignoring this reality and offering recognition of the State of Palestine. They say it's an act of justice, that it's overdue, that it will bring us a step forward towards peace. But we should ask ourselves, why do they want to recognize the State of Palestine now? Well, because a symbolic gesture is much easier than holding Israel accountable as it conducts genocide in Gaza and maintains a regime of apartheid in Palestine. If you truly understand what's happening, it's not recognition, it's resignation. To allow Israel to carry on while gaslighting the rest of us to believe that they stood for justice. We are not fighting for map by colonial cartographers. We're not begging for symbolic applause from the powers that enabled our dispossession. Recognizing the State of Palestine is accepting the colonial reality that was imposed on us, and it protects Zionism, a settler colonial ideology, by giving it permanence.
So you've been talking about settling, you've talked about displacing, wanting the Palestinians to go. You said to Africa, to Canada, to England, you don't care where. What would be wrong with either a two-state solution or a one-state solution where everyone had the same rights?
We want to have a Jewish state.
What we are demanding is liberation of all the land and all the people who belong to it. That means Palestinian refugees living in imposed exile all over the world. That means dismantling apartheid, not managing it. That means ending the occupation, not legitimizing it. That means confronting an ideology that says one people's presence on the land is a threat and another's dominance is a right. Recognition will not save Palestine. liberation and decolonization will. And this is very important. It's not just for Palestinians, but from the ideologies that have been used to colonize us, from Vietnam to Algeria, from the US to South Africa, because we are a direct continuation of these people and their struggles. And until liberation comes, and the theft is reversed, and the refugees return, and the walls come down, remember, recognition is not a step forward. It is a dangerous distraction to keep us in shackles.